for the university to pay attention to the costs of education for our students. So what we're trying to do is to shift as where possible. So faculty are increasingly using open resources rather than textbooks. And this is in part a response to the fact that the average UBC undergraduate student is paying about $1,200 a year for textbook materials. So we're trying to encourage a practice away so that we are reducing some of those costs. Along with the idea of creating new materials or adapting materials from other locations, we've been trying now to bring a lot of attention to ensuring that the materials that are developed by the university are ones that are meeting the kind of guidelines and principles around universal design for learning. So they should be accessible, they should be thoughtfully designed in terms of format, and they're basically, we're trying to ensure that people are doing their due diligence and have support in ensuring that the materials are available. So it's very exciting this year that we're partnering with CTLT and the Center for Accessibility. We've hired a position that's jointly funded through the OER fund and through the Center for Accessibility to support the consultation, the kind of design approaches, as well as the development of the means of ensuring that these materials are more accessible. So one of the things that we hope comes out of this kind of project are perhaps additional kind of institutional-wide supports and knowledge and resources that kind of help people to bring this into their practice more fully. Now, this kind of piggybacks on work that's been happening, especially in education, over many years. But what we're trying to do is connect more and more people to this conversation and ensure that at the same time as the province is bringing up guidelines around UBC's accountability for access, that we have the means to ensure that everyone is engaging with this as part of their practice. A second program that I want to talk about very briefly is a new program that we're currently in development with, and there are several people in this room who are going to help us, and I'm very thrilled about that, and it's the Universal Design for Learning Fellows Program. So this is a special call as part of the small TILIF, and we're earmarking some funding for the next 2 years to bring together faculty and staff teams who will concentrate on the redesign of a course that is informed by principles of universal design for learning, so that they're targeting some of the barriers that they might identify. We've purposely put this out so that we're going to have projects from around the entire university, 14 or 15 project teams. The idea being that we need the diversity of experience and context for learning, and we want to have a sense of how the kind of disciplinary characteristics within the faculties and the communities there inform the practices that we should be developing. So we will see over the next 2 years at least, the development of new professional development workshops, in some cases leveraging some existing materials and resources, tapping into the community. We've got partnership again with the Center for Accessibility and 5 faculties around the university, including education, to help to ensure that we're building a resource that will kind of lift the broader capacity. I don't want to take too much more time because you came here to see some of your speakers this afternoon, but I just want to call out a couple things here. One, the work of addressing barriers to learning is work that we're all responsible for, and it takes the entire UBC community to think about creative ways to engage this practice. Without question, there's additional work involved, and we have to partner. We have to collaborate together in doing this. We, and I guess saying we from a central support unit like CTLT, it's really essential that we collaborate with other units such as the Center for Accessibility, the library, and other associated groups, but also with the faculties and the programs, and pay attention to the unique and special needs of the different groups across campus. But we also have to find ways to partner with faculty, staff, and students in this effort, because this is something that affects all of us. I want to conclude just by acknowledging that in many respects, we are, there has been so much good work that the team at ETS and in the Faculty of Education have done over the years. Natasha was an early leader in a lot of the work around accessibility. She's long advocated for this, and this is very deeply ingrained in your practice. I really welcome the opportunity to learn from some of the good work that has already started, has long been underway within education, and drawing more attention to this practice so others around the university can also see that this is one of the tools that they need to have at their disposal as they're designing their courses, as they're designing their programs, and ensuring that we are doing everything possible to reduce barriers for all learners. So I think you're not here to hear anything more from me, so I will pass it back to Parm, and I hope you enjoy the 2 sessions that are organized for this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the explanation and the historical overview of accessibility, and it's really great to see this much attention, and especially for the TEC EXPO focusing on accessibility. I will just give you a quick overview of the agenda today. The speakers, we have 2 sessions today. The first speaker is Joyce Chan Morris. My apologies, Joyce, if I mispronounced that. The second session will start at 12:30. The first session is 30 minutes. And at the end of the day, we've got a virtual social, and we'll share a link to connect in a tool called GatherTown. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction before I hand this off to Joyce. Joyce will be discussing Articulate, Vyond, and Adobe products, which were used to build a suite of plug-and-play content that can be used for standalone and blended learning curriculum for the road to mental readiness. It's a mental health and performance education team within the Department of National Defense. So with that, Joyce, I will hand this over.
Thank you so much, Parm. And can everyone hear me okay? Yes? All right, perfect. So thank you so much for having me here today. I'm going to share my screen. So give me 1 second. All right, so my name is Joyce Chan Moray, and I'm an alumni of the UPC Masters of Education Technology program. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to come back and to share some of my work with you today. And thank you for having me here. I'm currently an instructional designer working for the Department of National Defense, though I have worked in both the private and public sectors in this role, as well as in the role of project manager on learning projects. And today I want to share with you a recent project that I have completed with my current team, Road to Mental Readiness, or R2MR for short, and walk through why this particular approach is in line with what my team does. I hope you enjoy, and please feel free to ask any questions in the chat or at the end of this presentation. And also apologize if I may cough a bit through this presentation. I still have a bit of a lingering cough from pneumonia that I recently got over. So in this presentation, I'll briefly talk about what Road to Mental Readiness is, just to give you some context. We'll take a look then at why we chose a blended learning approach. Next, we'll look further at how that blended learning is scaffolded. And finally, we'll take a look at the product itself, what the technologies were used, and how these were built so that they can be plug and play learning blocks. So a quick history of Road to Mental Readiness. R2MR was founded in 2008 in the Department of National Defense. It was founded to support the mental health, the well-being and performance of Canadian Armed Forces. So we usually call them the SCAF. It is an evidence-based mental health program. It's composed of a team of mental health professionals, learning professionals, and CAF members. So our mandate is to deliver learning to CAF members and their families to support their mental health and performance. And we do this primarily through teaching about mental health, stress, and how these impact performance, and giving strategies and tools to the CAF members and the families to manage stress and how to seek support to maintain or improve their mental well-being and their performance. And this can be both at work as well as in their personal life. So Road to Mental Readiness content has been primarily delivered in person across the country and sometimes beyond our own national borders to CAF members working abroad and sometimes even to our allies. Road to Mental Readiness training, it ranges from based on the training time ranges based on what the client allots to us and what they're hoping to achieve. So when I'm saying client, for us, that means the various occupations or even specific deployment teams within the armed forces. So that said, courses can range from an hour.
Joyce, I lost the connection for a while.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Are you guys still seeing my screen?
I can't see your screen any longer. No.
Okay, let me see. Um, 1 second. There we go. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes. Thank you.
Perfect.
That's wonderful.
So I'm not really sure where I got cut off, but I'll just start on this slide. Sorry. So we chose so with the blended learning, I was just mentioning that Artemar had some online learning content in the past, but it's pretty archaic. It was just basically taking PowerPoint slides and putting it on an LMS and calling it online learning. So I feel like we've come a long way since then, and we're starting to dabble into blended learning. And but however, most of our courses are still primarily classroom based. And so this is our first foray into this forum, and we're pretty excited about it because, as you all know, blended learning allows us kind of the best of both worlds. So, hold on a second. So making our content online just tightens up our package, and given the time restrictions that our clients have given to us sometimes, and how much time they can allow the students to be on course, uh, that having an online component has been really helpful. In fact, the online content that we have, it's approximately 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on what blocks the curriculum developer selects. But it saves us about 2 to 3 days of in-class instructions. And that the instruction that it saves is not very interactive instructions. It's much more like the sage on the stage type of push content teaching. So we think that this is a good trade-off. And secondly, moving into the content online just allows us to save time and cost for instructors' travel and accommodations across the country. So these are just some of the more practical business reasons why we decided to use blended learning. But from a learning perspective, blended learning allows us to save valuable classroom time for more meaningful and facilitated conversations and just do deeper dives into the content since we use a flipped classroom approach. We ask the students to first take the online course before they're permitted to join us in the in-class portion. We're often also asked to deliver training to teams that are deploying on missions or members coming home. So these requests have to be actioned very quickly, and they may only have 1 or 2 students, so it doesn't really make sense for us to send an instructor out or to develop a course just for a few students, or we may not even be able to develop something that quickly. So just having something in place already is very useful for very quick turnaround situations. And finally, RTMR is a program that is taught over the course of a CAF member's career. So this means that some students may already have some exposure to the content before. And so the self-paced asynchronous online component just allows students to explore each topic as deeply or as quickly as it suits them, depending on what they remember or what they already know. So the scaffolding approach, the structure that we use, uses a bit of the Vygotsky's theory of zone of proximal development. So in the first portion of the course, with the scaffolding, it is mainly it's didactic online foundational knowledge and with a little bit of application to reinforce some of the learning. And so the main trajectory here is just to gain a solid base of the content so that it can be discussed further in class. And the content for this online portion is general to the military audience. Now, the next portion is the in-class portion, and this is much more of an applied type of learning. We have a more knowledgeable other, and this person can be either a military peer, so a military member or a veteran, or a mental health clinician who facilitates the discussion. And we actually often find that the co-facilitation with one military member who serves to give the military background experience, and then one mental health clinician who acts as the mental health professional is a winning combo of credibility for our students. Now, the in-class portion, so that not only builds on what the students learn in the online portion, but it also allows for discussion to be tailored to their specific occupation or mission. And this is particularly powerful since all the students in the class will be sharing a certain mission that they're going to be on, or they all work in the same occupation. So the next portion is then taking that learning into the real life situation for integration. And there are students expected to integrate what they learn into the immediate situation, whether that is a mission or their just whatever occupation that they work in. But they're not just left to kind of go on their own. We do have an R2MR app that can support them, and it's available on iOS and Android. We also have a family website coming up just so that they can explore the content themselves whenever they choose. Now, because of the asynchronous nature of online learning, the students are able to and encouraged to revisit some of the online content at any point in time to continuously monitor their mental health. And one of the next steps is to create a third phase where is online content specifically for self-exploration, so that they can continue with any deep dives into mental health or stress or performance-related content that they're interested in. And as I mentioned earlier, R2MR training occurs through a craft member's career. So that is where the learning spirals into the next cycle of the R2MR learning. And in the next section, I'll focus on just the online portion and how we developed it for a plug-and-play learning approach. So before I show you the product here, here are some of the technologies and tools that we use to build this course. So while some of these programs can be a bit more pricey, we use them quite heavily, and we certainly get our money's worth. We do also use some free programs online. So we kind of use a little bit of both. So one that you may be familiar with is Articulate Suite or 360 Suite. We use multiple tools within the suite. We use Rise and Storyline to build the course, and we use Review 360 for our review process. We also use this content library since it is available to us as part of the suite. But I'll go over a little bit later on some of the sources of images and assets. And we find that Vyond Studio is great for building explainer videos. So Vyond Studio is a 2D video subscription. It allows us to build 2D and whiteboard videos. And that works really great for very complex topics or just a lot of content, or we want to just change how the content is consumed. So we're also very fortunate that within the Department of National Defense, we have access to Adobe Creative Cloud. And so of the programs within Creative Cloud that we use, we mainly use Premiere Pro and After Effects to build some clip style videos and Photoshops for image editing. And a really interesting subscription that we recently acquired is called Murph, Murph.ai. It is a text-to-speech program It is very easy to use and it makes narration much easier and cheaper to create and edit. And it's just really amazing how far artificial intelligence has taken text to speech. So we chose MER um, because not only did it have voices in a multitude of languages, but as part of the government of Canada, we do have to provide the content in both English and French. And MERP not only uh, provides a French voice, it actually provides French Canadian voices, which is particularly suitable for our Francophone audience. And on that note, with the text speech, I just want to give a honorable mention to Well Said Labs. If you're interested in checking out text to speech, this one was by far the best text to speech that we found. And it's very, very human-like. In fact, like I had many people, they were very surprised that the video we created using Well Said Labs was text to speech. They thought there was someone, a real person speaking. But the problem was we didn't go with Well Said Labs because they only had English voices. And when we tried to put a French text in, it just sounded like an English speaker who didn't know how to speak French, trying very hard to speak French, and it was just not great. And finally, I wanted to quickly mention about some of the image sourcing that we use. As I mentioned before, we use Articulate Content Library because it's already available to us. However, I would highly encourage any of you to check out Envato Elements. So this is a subscription that has a lot of stock images and videos, but also background music and sounds. And it is just, there's no limits to how much you can download. So that has been really great, which unlike Adobe Stock, which is something else that we use, Adobe Stock is not part of the Adobe Creative Suite. And we do keep it just because if we're looking for a very specific image, it has a better search functionality than Envato Elements. But if you're just looking at a very wide library of content, video, images, sounds, it is very, very affordable for the amount of content that it gives. And finally, the Canadian Armed Forces actually takes a lot of photos, very good photos of their members on deployment, and they post them on a Flickr site called a Combat Camera, and these images are available for public use. So now that I kind of talked about the technologies used, I'm going to show you the product that we end up creating, and maybe you can identify some of the technologies used in the program. So you may be familiar with the RISE tool, how it looks. We really liked it for the frame that it gave. So it gave us the structure. However, within the, and it's quite neat. We can separate it into sections and lessons, but we really try to push the boundaries of what we can do within RISE because RISE is very suitable for a lot of new anyone who's just kind of picking up building online learning. So it's quite easy, but it can start to look very much the same after a while. So what we did is we use a combination of RISE and storyline. So for example, here you can see a storyline file. It may not really look like a storyline file, but this is a storyline file. It gives you interactivity. It gives you content, which allows us to build these micro learning nuggets and also have some interactivity in there. We built it and we removed the player that usually surrounds the storyline file, and we embedded a navigation directly into the storyline file itself. So that allows us to have a much more seamless experience within the content. So you can see that we also use some of the RISE's native functionality, like some of the tab functionalities. And again, another storyline file, but it's just a lot more seamless because you don't have that extra player feeling like, oh, I'm going into a different program here. And we also push the boundaries with storyline with not just not using a player, but also like what size the canvas is. So this is just a storyline file is made to click, which yes, Rise has flip cards, but this just makes it a much more tailored and customized look and feel. We also use a lot of videos. So you can see that we have videos and we actually use the Rise block. So this is the accordion block. We just shaved it down to one block. And what we did was we popped in the video transcript for accessibility purposes. Rise is also really great because it allows you to add VTT files, and those are the video text tracks. And you can add them in multiple languages. So you can have it in English and French while the video is playing. So you can just click here and we just added the English for this particular version, but you could have multiple languages on there, which is really great. Um, so I'm going to flip back to my PowerPoint. So plug and play learning. So I just want to talk a little bit about why plug and play learning blocks is appropriate for the RTMR content. So RTMR, we have a set core, like a core set of foundational content that we teach, and it is at its base, it doesn't really change. So most, but not all of the foundational content is taught to a variety of audience. Now that does change a little bit based on the needs of each learner group. So what we teach about stress and mental health and performance to, let's say, new recruits, that differs from what we teach to those at the leadership level, or what we teach to pilots in the Air Force needs to be tailored to them, while what we teach to submariners in the Navy would also be different. And the stress that someone who is working in an operational position on a base in Canada is going to be very, very different from the stresses that someone is facing if they're deployed overseas on a mission. So the plug and play learning blocks allows RTMR curriculum designers to quickly and easily just pick out the blocks that they need to build specific courses for whichever audience that they're creating course for. And they don't have to recreate each of the content from scratch each time. So that's actually part of the reason why Rise is um, really great, because we use it as a frame, but because it's very easy to remove, we can just make a copy of the course and then we can just remove blocks or switch out the order of blocks very easily. You can save blocks and move them around to different lessons. So that is one of the reasons why we use Rise as a framework of our content. And again, like I said, the playerless storyline files, this gives a bit of a seamless integration. And then by building it into Rise, we can also move the story line files or micro-learning files in whichever order we like, or take them out completely if for whatever reason we don't need to teach that part of the content to the audience. So storyline for micro-learning and to just amp up interactivity. And then for the explainer video, so you may have noticed like we use the explainer videos using the Vyond. We use videos, and then we just leverage the text that the accordion blocks are transcript and the VTT files for captioning. So this project has recently been focus tested. As I said, this is a new foray for us into the blended learning and approach for learning, and also this plug and play approach. And when it was focus tested recently, so this was back in June, it was met with great success. And we're actually currently in pilot testing right now. Learning assets to greatly reduce both course development time, since we can use it to tailor the learning for different audience groups, and also to improve the use of in-person classroom time. So if you're interested in seeing the RTMR app, I invite you to download it for free on the Google Play or at the App Store. And I have included the QR codes here that will take you directly to the page for download. It is not just for military members. Anyone can use it. It's just a great app for just monitoring your mental health and just having some strategies to help you manage stress. And so if you're working with a program that has a set of core learning content, but which may need a bit of tailoring or customization based on a different learning audience, I encourage you to take a look at using a plug and play approach, whether it is with Rise and Storyline or H5P or whatever other tools you have at your disposal. And I'll admit that it's a bit of work up front, but the amount of work that it will save you in the long run is even greater. So thank you for attending my presentation, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm happy to answer any questions in the time that we have left, if anyone has any.
Thank you for that, Grace. That was really interesting, and it was nice to see like all the attention that was put into selecting the elements to consider the visuals, the text, the captioning. That was really some very nice educational courses. I don't see any questions in the chat. Does anyone have any questions? No. Oh, we have Marika has a question.
Hi, thank you, Joyce, for your very informative presentation. I really like how you show the integration of that know that if you develop like training articulate storyline or Vyond, those would need more time in developing those materials. So for just-in-time trainings, do you also use these tools, or you have other tools that help you to develop those?
So for us right now, I'm sorry. Our goal is to develop this particular training now so that we can use it for the just-in-time learning and that it can be easily pulled and kind of put together into a suite that is suitable for the specific audience that it needs to go to. So right now, a lot of times when we do have those just-in-time training, curriculum developers are scrambling to put something together. And so this is our approach to seeing if we can shorten those timelines and just make it less of a scramble, especially if we get some very urgent requests. So for example, when COVID hit and we had op laser, there was a lot of requests for training, and we just couldn't keep up with the demand because it was urgent and there was a lot coming in. So hopefully this is what will help.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Marika, and thank you, Joyce. Joyce, again, I wanted to say that from an instructional design background, I loved seeing the way the course was creatively put together with the different uses of technology. And I really liked how you made the articulate storyline frameless. It just makes it look seamless, less disruptive for the student experience. So that was really well done. Thank you again for participating.